Welcome, everyone. I'm Lynn Margherio. I'm the founder and CEO of Cradles to Crayons, and I'm so excited to be here tonight for our 5th annual Chairman's Council Impact Award. As many of you know, Cradles to Crayons' mission is to combat clothing insecurity for children. And what we mean by that is providing clothing, which is coats, hats, mittens, tops, bottoms, underwear, PJ socks, to children who are living in families who struggle to provide their children with adequate and ample clothing so that they have what they need. They have enough clothes, they have clothes that fit, and they have clothes that fit for the season when they walk out the door, so that they can hold their heads high. We estimate that more than 2 out of every 5 children across the United States faces clothing insecurity, and we exist to help those children. And we do that in partnership with amazing social service agency partners who are on the front lines working with children and families in so many different settings. They're working out in the community, they're working in their offices, they're in schools, they're in shelters, and they are finding or learning from families about these very emergent needs that children are facing, and they order through their partnerships with us. And I cannot say enough about the importance of the work that our partners do. It's been absolutely stunning and incredible over the pandemic to see them go the extra mile for children and families who are struggling. And in today's environment where inflation is absolutely through the roof, this mission is really critical, and these partnerships are absolutely vital. So I'm excited to be here to celebrate the work of our social service agency partners and to share this award tonight. And I'm excited now to invite our Chairman's Council member, Yolanda Taylor, to tell us who it's going to be this year.
Oh, so exciting. So no, we don't even know. Thank you, Lynn. It's great to be here. This award has a long and important history to me. Oh, the host just stopped my video. I think, sorry, 1 second. Okay, I think I'm good now. So I've been involved with Cradles for quite a long time. I actually met Lynn 2 to 3 years, perhaps, after the founding of Cradles. I had newborn twins at the time, went on to have 2 more kids. So I have 4 kids who've been very actively involved with Cradles over the years. My daughters have participated in the teen leadership program a number of years and have just gotten tremendous benefit from that themselves. We've been to the Giving Factory countless times to volunteer as a family. The kids have gone separately. I was on the Boston board for 5 years and continue to be active with Cradles. So as Lynn shared, service partners are integral part of what Cradles to Crayons does. And we are excited to take a moment to highlight the incredible work here. And the Chairman's Council Impact Award recognizes a service partner organization that demonstrates excellence in collaboration. It furthers Cradle's shared mission to provide children with the everyday essentials they need to thrive. And the award includes an accompanying grant to strengthen the service partners organization and programming so we can all have a greater impact. I'm pleased to introduce this year's Chairman's Council Impact Award winner, which is Hildebrand Family Self-Help Center. So congratulations. Hildebrand is based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And as we'll hear, their mission is to break the cycle of homelessness, but providing shelter, permanent housing, training and work readiness programs, and life skills development. In partnership with Hildebrand, Cradles to Crayons was able to provide nearly 400 packages of essential items to children in shelter last year. Their application proposed funding to expand their resource center program for clients so they could have more consistent and customized interactions with children and families in shelter, and ensure that the 200 plus families have the everyday resources they need. We look forward at Cradles to expanding our collaboration to meet more families' needs in the years ahead. And now I'm pleased to introduce Sheila Moore, who just joined on camera, the Executive Director of Hildebrand Family Self-Help Center, to share more about their wonderful work and their winning proposal. Just a quick introduction. Sheila has been the CEO since January of 2013. Her previous experience includes leading organizations focused on domestic violence and homeless youth services. During her tenure as the executive director, let me see if I can say this correctly, of Casa Myrna Vasquez.
Very good.
She led the founding of SafeLink, the statewide domestic violence hotline. Sheila has served on the boards of Central Square Business Association, Jane Doe Incorporated, Mount Washington East Boston Food Bank, Boston Cares, and Planned Parenthood of Eastern Mass, and served as a member of the Governor's Commission Against Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence and Mitt Romney's transition team. Amazing. Congratulations to you, Sheila, and Hildebrand Family Self-Help Center. We so much look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. I'm so excited to be here and to know that one of our peer organizations has recognized us. We've had a long history of support from Cradles to Crayons, and I have personally admired the work of Lynn in growing that organization. So I'm appreciative, and this gives me the opportunity to say thank you to you too, Lynn, for what you've done, not only for Hildebrand, but for all the children in the Boston area and across the country. As I thought about what it is I wanted to share with this group today, it took me back to how we were founded. We're an organization that was founded by St. Paul AME Church in Cambridge. And them being a church meant that their focus is obviously spirituality. And there is nothing more fundamental to the human spirit than food, clothing, and shelter. So what we are doing, and that we are doing together, really speaks to advocating for those who are disenfranchised. And I hope we will continue together to dismantle the social structures that lead to poverty and homelessness. Our vision is that every family has a home, and our mission is that we partner with families. We endeavor to break the cycle of homelessness by providing shelter, permanent housing, training, and work readiness programs. And overall, what we seek to do is to truly just restore hope and build brighter futures for the families of Boston and Cambridge. We are about people, programs, and partnerships. The people, our people are the folks who are in our organization who provide services. The programs that we provide are leveraged through the partnerships by organizations like Cradles to Crayons. You know, when HUD put out their last point in time report, which was 2020, there were 580,000 homeless individuals in the country, and 172,000 of those were people in families. Half of all of the homeless families in the country are in 3 cities, or I should say 3 states: California, New York, and believe it or not, Massachusetts. So it's no coincidence that we have seen since 2020, the first time since HUD started tracking this, an uptick in the number of people who are in family units who are unsheltered. 10,000 people seek emergency shelter every year in the state of Massachusetts. About 3,000 of those are able to find emergency shelter in one of 40 family sheltering organizations in our state. Hildebrand happens to be one of the largest in the state. And in our fiscal year 2021, we supported 1,025 individuals who were in 396 family units. 55 of those families we placed in permanent housing, and every year between 50 and 80 families we place into permanent affordable housing. And then we follow those families into stable housing and for 2 years after they leave shelter. So as you can see, about a half of the people who are in our shelters are children, and 313 children in the year FY21, fiscal year 21, were actually school-age children. In terms of the people, our people, 90% of the Hildebrand staff are BIPOC. 10% of them speak other languages, are bilingual. And Hildebrand is always, we're 34 years old. We've always been led by a female, an African-American female, in fact. And I'm only the 3rd in the history of Hildebrand. And then our strategic focus, one of them over the past several years, has been for the staff of Hildebrand to make this a desirable workplace. So not only are we supporting, we believe strongly in supporting families, but supporting our staff to continue their own personal growth, professional growth and development. So more about specifically what we do. We have 140 units of emergency shelter, and families live with us in scattered sites, congregate living in consolidated co-shelter buildings throughout the Boston and Cambridge area. In fact, the majority of what we provide is in the neighborhoods of Boston. We offer housing search, intensive case management, and that is focused on eliminating the barriers, which are the things that keep people from securing housing once they come to shelter. We help our families navigate all the systems, and there are many: educational systems, training, and employment. Our families come to shelter looking for jobs and looking to further their, not only their education, but to gain skills so that they can increase their wages. We make community connections for families, and because many of our families are immigrants, we work to connect them with supports that will address their individual immigration issues. And we also are sort of that connective tissue around their physical, their health, as well as their mental health needs. We believe in increasing self-sufficiency for the time that families are with us, because on average, families stay about 15 months. So we are encouraging families to create savings for that time and improve their ability to manage their finances, because as you can imagine, we're dealing with people who are extremely low income. So understanding what money is spent on and how it's spent and making choices really matters when you have such limited income. We provide access to transportation for them to help people when they need it, if they don't have it for themselves or can't access it elsewhere. And as you all know, we work on a regular basis to provide for the basic needs of most of the families who come. And that includes everything from food to clothing and other family supports. And in particular for children, we just initiated during COVID a what we call an education initiative, so that during that time when the schools were closed, our children didn't lose ground during remote learning. And we also encourage families to send their children to summer camps and other enrichment programs, and we facilitate them getting there, doing everything from filling out the applications to finding free camps for them every summer. The last two things that we do, we ourselves as an organization, we own affordable housing units. We have 22 units of affordable housing, both in Cambridge and in Boston. We just acquired our last building and had a celebration of that just 2 weeks ago. And we, as I mentioned before, we place families in affordable housing, usually through some sort of subsidized assistance. Stabilization services is the last component of what we do. We support families for 2 years after they leave shelter to make sure that they do not return to homelessness. And we're really proud of the fact that well over 90% of our families are stably housed 2 years after they leave us. And that we help them continue on with the goals that they established while they were there, whether they are related to employment and training, childcare, or other personal goals that the family has. So the fund, how are we going to use the funding from Cradles to Crayons? We have a resource center that is co-located with our main office in Cambridge. And the great thing about that space is that it also has room enough for us to customize a resource center and childcare adjacent space, as well as a training space. So we will use the money from Cradles to Crayons to enhance the area where children play, to provide sensory space for the children, and that will be used while their parents are what we call having a shopping experience at the resource center. So we will be able to reorganize it and expand the storage capacity of the resource center so that we will be able to provide even a larger array and more targeted array of supports, goods and services. And you all have been such a great and invaluable partner to us over the years. I mean, if you were to come to Hildebrand, you would see Cradles to Crayons probably from the moment you walk through our door. We're always receiving Cradles to Crayons, coats, backpacks, and all kinds of other goodies that we're giving out to the families all the time. And I wanted to share with you what the impact has been with just a few families. So the first scenario really was a mother and a father and they were both undocumented. They had a 5-year-old daughter who was on her way to, obviously, to start school this past fall, but she got the daughter got sick. And in September, she had to have major surgery. And obviously her parents, their primary focus was not on school at that point. They had to turn their attention to caring for their daughter and worrying about her health and getting her through that surgery and recovery. So when we showed up with coats, a coat for her and her school supplies. She did recover and was able to go to school in November. You can imagine how excited that family was who's living in shelter and obviously focused on much more important things in their lives in that moment. It mattered to them and it made a difference. The second scenario I want to share is of a single immigrant mother who is with us. She had a newborn at the time, but also has a school-aged daughter. This was her first cold winter. So the case manager, recognizing that this was her first winter in Massachusetts, reached out to our resource center, and we were able to gather up diapers and wipes and warm clothes for not only her infant son, but the older school-aged daughter. And again, a young mother alone in shelter, having had a newborn, made a difference for that family. And the last one I want to share with you is a family of a single father, headed by a single father who had 4 children in shelter that he was caring for by himself. Unfortunately, his wife wasn't with him. He's waiting for his wife to join him from their native country. And his challenge was that while he was looking for employment, his focus was obviously on employment, but also caring for the 4 children alone and needing a job that would allow him to have a flexible enough schedule so that he could juggle his childcare responsibilities as well as provide for the family. And Cradles to Crayons was there to provide winter coats and supplies and the backpacks and all of the other necessities he needed for the young child, the baby as well. And this was a father, and this is the last thing I want to share with you, a father who went on to into one of our Hildebrand owned affordable housing units. And I think it's nothing better than to hear from a family themselves. So I want to share with you just this brief video from the family.
Hi, my name is Abu Bakr. I have 3 boys, the firstborn, second, the third right here, Nasib, Nabil, and Nadim. I'm very happy for living apartment, a new house. And we go to the Cambridge school. What's your name of the school?
Kennedy Longfellow.
Kennedy Longfellow. Yeah, I say thank you, Hildebrand.
Thank you, Hildebrand.
For help. I'm very, very happy. My son is very, very happy. Thank you so much, you guys.
Hi, CB. Hi.
Hi, Tim, say hi.
Hi.
Say thank you for help.
Thank you for.
Hey, say hey, guys.
Yay.
I like you. Look up at me. I like you. I like your house.
I like you.
I like your house. Thank you so much. Love you guys.
So thank you, Cradles to Crayons. Again, the award means so much to us, and we will put the money to good use. And as I said earlier, it's not so much the money, it's all the other things that we've done together over the years, and I know we'll continue to do as partners.
Thank you so much, Sheila, and congratulations to you, and congratulations to your amazing team at Hildebrand. We're really proud to partner with you. I know that I have a million questions about your work and about Hildebrand, but I would also like to invite our guests. If you have any questions, please drop them into the Q&A button or into the chat so you can get your questions answered as well. I would love to just kick us off by asking you maybe to paint a little bit of a picture for us of a family who is arriving to one of your shelters. Can you say, like, how are they learning about you, and what are they showing up? What are they bringing with them into the shelter?
Yeah, that's really a good question, and probably one that I get the most often. How do people even find you? So I don't know if most people know, but Massachusetts is one of only 3 jurisdictions in the country. This is a bit of good news. It's one of only 3 jurisdictions in the country where shelter for families is a right. So, but that means that we are caring for the most vulnerable families who are considered extremely low income. And the way they access shelter is to be screened at one of the DTA offices in the state. So one of the welfare offices. They are referred directly to us from the Department of Housing and Community Development. So when they arrive, families have already been living someplace that is unfit for human habitation. They are presenting as a victim of domestic violence, or they've been evicted. So, and they're meeting income qualifications to be considered extremely low income, according to HUD guidelines, as a matter of fact. And so they arrive, we get a call saying there's a family that needs shelter. And one of our case managers, intake workers, will meet the family, will arrange to meet a family and bring them to the unit. When they arrive, they probably have 1 or 2 bags, because that's literally all they're allowed to bring, is 1 or 2 bags. All their possessions are usually in 1 or 2 bags. But what we do is provide a fully furnished apartment, or an apartment that they're sharing with someone else. So although they only have their personal possessions, they arrive at a place that's fully furnished. They have a fully supplied kitchen. Their bathrooms are already set up with tiles. Their bedrooms already have sheets. There are already lamps in the unit.
That must be a huge relief for the families to come into a situation like that and have those needs met. I wonder, the last 2.5 years have been so hard in so many ways, and nobody has escaped it. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what the pandemic has meant for, or how it has impacted the families who are coming to the shelter, and then how has it impacted your operations?
I worry about the impact of the pandemic on people who are already vulnerable, who'd already experienced trauma, and then to have gone through the pandemic. There were families who made the decision not to even come to shelter. I don't even know where some of these there were families who made decisions to just stay with abusers, is what I imagine. Or families who made the decision to stay in their cars. There were people who were afraid to come. Normally, we are 100% full all the time. When we place someone, we immediately get another placement. But because we had to depopulate the buildings where we were running congregate living programs, meaning it was a big house that may have had 5 or 9 families in it. Well, now we were down to 3 or 4 families because we needed to give families space. But even with that, the demand was down during COVID. So I worry about what children were exposed to during the time, their loss of learning when the schools went to remote learning. For the families that were with us, we were able to get Chromebooks. We were able to, we partnered with you guys and even others of our partners who provided food. People reached out to us and dropped off food. We were able to go buy food from additional donations that we received. So we were able to give out more than we even normally would to the families who were with us. And we were able to start something that we hadn't even done before, which is helping children in school. We partnered with some of the local colleges, and they sent us interns, and they're continuing to do so that we can track kids, make sure that they're attending school and keeping up with their lessons. So it is the children who I worry about the most are the children we were not able to touch during the pandemic. How it's impacted our operations, COVID shifted the world of every employer. From an employer perspective, we had to focus on protecting not only our families, but our staff. We had a more difficult time recruiting people during the pandemic. Salaries went up, so our operating costs had to go up, which meant more demand on fundraising for us. So I would say from an employer perspective, as well as a service provider perspective, it has changed our world.
And Sheila, are you seeing families coming back now? Are they feeling more secure to come to Hildebrand?
Yes.
Still
yes.
below the levels
Yes.
you
Yeah,
saw
I would say
pandemic.
we may have 10 or 15 units still open, but they're coming back online. They are coming back online.
Okay. And you mentioned the impact of the pandemic, but also of inflation, where you're seeing higher staff salaries, higher inputs. You probably have been impacted by the supply chain disruptions, as I know we have as well. So how do you fund the organization? What's your major source of funding? And can you give us a sense of the size of your budget?
Sure. So we operate on about an $8 million budget. And our primary source of funding is the Department of Housing and Community Development. They fund the shelter units and the staff who support families in emergency shelter and our stabilization program. But we have found some of our older funders and new partners during this pandemic. The remaining funding comes from foundations, corporations, and individuals. And we have found those sources of funding increase over the past couple of years. So that has been helpful.
Oh, that's encouraging. And do you expect that those families who weren't coming in, that you're going to be able to reach them? And can you talk a little bit about your strategies for doing that outreach?
So we are an organization that I describe it as a closed system, meaning we don't do outreach for shelter because families are all automatically referred to us. Whenever there's an opening, families are being referred to us. But we have started doing community-based outreach to prevent families from eviction. We were supported by an organization in Boston that funded us to identify people who were at risk of being evicted and help them find the resources to do things like pay rental arrearages or apply if they were at the place of eviction, find other housing. So we've been doing more. That's like literally another thing that we started during the pandemic is how do we stem the tide from people even coming to shelter in the first place, which is really community-based, boots on the ground, combing the neighborhoods, going into our partnering organizations, community centers, barbershops, looking for people who know people, partnering with housing authorities to identify folks who may be at risk of losing their housing.
Yeah.
And we literally opened a satellite office during COVID also. So that they're literally now able to come to our satellite office in Dorchester, and our outreach person really sits down and helps them fill out applications. And she's helped, last count, I believe it was last week before, 65 families save their housing.
I mean, so you're really providing services from literally from diapers to school support to counseling, job training, eviction services, and probably everything in between. Actually, I've been thinking about mental health and thinking about the fragility of the families who are likely to be residents of yours. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what you're seeing on the mental health front and your ability to cope with it.
I myself have been in Hildebrand since 2013, Lynn, and I can tell you that just anecdotally, people are less well from a mental health perspective. Their ability to be resilient is down. So I'm concerned about our lack of mental health in the country in general, our lack of mental health supports in general, but it is particularly alarming to see people who are disconnected from providers to begin with and struggle with mental health challenges. So we do our best to connect people to supports that they need, but I know it's not enough. I think it is one of the biggest holes that exists. We also know that people who have mental health challenges or people who have health challenges in general, they tend to stay longer in shelter. And that is not good for them or for their children. So Boston, Cambridge, and all of the surrounding communities, given the resources that we have to do better. And in fact, the mayor of Boston recently formed a commission on family homelessness, which I'm on, that was just got started with its planning a couple of months ago. And the mental health is one of the areas that was identified as a significant contributor, not only to moving families out of shelter, but contributing factor to folks coming into shelter to begin with. Boston and all of our healthcare greatness attracts people to the area because they seek medical care here, but it also means that there are also vulnerable people who are making their way to Boston and then finding themselves homeless. But yet they themselves are seeking care, or they're here to seek care for their children. We literally had an intake several years ago. I'll never forget this story of a child who had an operation on their intestine and was significantly compromised, in a compromised health state. We did an intake from the hospital to shelter. We have children. We have one young child with cerebral palsy that we had to get a wheelchair for, a specially made wheelchair for her. So you're right, Lynn. It's not about providing just shelter. It's more than even us providing affordable housing. It's providing all the supports that people need to live their lives.
Well, I so appreciate all that you do, Sheila. And, you know, in addition to the work that you're doing in Hildebrand, you're also participating in these commissions and, you know, really advocating for the community, the communities that you serve. And as we are looking at really trying to tackle the challenge of clothing insecurity for children, we too will be spending more time joining coalitions and you know, being part of, you know, adding our voice to the very real needs that children and families are facing. And you know, and we just really appreciate our ability to partner with you and the amazing dedication you and your team have to this work. So thank you. And we're just truly honored to give you this award and to say that we partner with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you again, because it really does mean a lot.
Well, I'd also just like to see one final question. You know, when you think about the things that could make sustainable change for families and individuals who struggle with housing stability, what are the solutions you would like to see? Where do we start, and what gives you hope?
People need a living wage. That's the first thing. We all have to advocate for a living wage. I'm just reading something the other day. It said you have to make like $33.80 an hour to afford market rate housing in Boston. Well, our families make $12 an hour. So people need a living wage. About 40% of the people are working. They cannot sustain themselves. We have to dismantle systems of oppression and racism. We have to open up housing. We have to stop displacing people from the affordable housing. We have to stop NIMBY. We have to advocate for having some degree of affordable housing in our communities. Some communities are carrying an extra burden. Boston's a wonderful city, but it's overburdened. And we have to build more affordable housing. And we are, although we are a large family service provider ourselves, we can't, and organizations like us can't do it all. It's very expensive to build affordable housing. It costs about $500,000 to build a housing unit. Well, as a country, we have to figure out where we're going to find the money, because we have to ask ourselves, what's the trade-off? The trade-off is spending money on keeping people in shelter and then supporting them in some form of other type of housing for an even longer period after that, and then perhaps moving them to affordable housing. So our society has to make some different choices, some investment in children, investment in families, investment in education, and investment in income.
Well, I think you've got partners here who are excited to join with you, and people who are part of this call who hear you, and who I see a note in the chat saying we second all of that. So so thank you, Sheila, and congratulations, and good luck on all of your endeavors and your work at Hildebrand. We're excited to continue to partner with you. And now I would like to invite Bill Mattson, who is on our Chairman's Council, to help us to talk about what is next with Cradles to Crayons and what's exciting about this year.
Well, thanks, Lynn. First, Sheila, wow. The work that Hildebrand is doing is incredible. And it gives me real joy to know that Cradles in a meaningful way is part of being able to provide the important support that you're offering to these families. As a member of the Chairman's Council, I had the privilege of being able to review a half dozen other finalists who told similar stories from across the country of the work they're doing for families who have needs and the important support that they're receiving from Cradles. It truly is an honor to be able to read these stories, and I am so impressed with the work that is being done on behalf of these folks who are in need. As Lynn said, my name is Bill Mattson. I recently retired from the National Board after serving for 6 years. Our family's involvement with Cradles started by donating clothes at our church and one day following them down to the Giving Center in Quincy, for those of you who have a long memory. We now have graduated to the point where in this past Christmas, our grandchildren are involved in kitting packages that and ultimately end up in the Giving Center, both here and in Philadelphia. With our longstanding involvement with Cradles, I've had the privilege of watching the organization grow. And the good news and bad news, depending on how you want to look at it, is there are incredible needs out there. It's estimated there are over 20 million children nationally who are at risk of experiencing clothing insecurity, meaning they don't have the basic things they need to go to school, to go out and play, to go out in the winter. And Cradles has found a way over the years to be able to provide support to those children and to their families. First through bricks and mortar in Philadelphia, Chicago, and in Boston. But most recently and most impressively, graduating that model from one of having bricks and mortar to one that is on a digital platform, allowing us to support children across the country in new markets like New York. The vision to be able to do that really shows the growth we've had from the early days where Lynn was inspired by being able to redistribute the new and gently used clothes that she found in her niece's closet. Cradles to Crayons has distributed over 3 million packages of clothing, shoes, diapers, school supplies, and more in Massachusetts, Greater Philadelphia, in Chicagoland, and now through the virtual model in New York City. If you've ever worked in the backpackathon in any of those markets, you're able to see firsthand the excitement of being able to develop that package that helps children in their first day of school. And I had a group of volunteers that served with me in Boston that on their way home actually saw the Cradles truck stopping at a school and children receiving those backpacks. I can remember how exciting it was to have the first day of school and have new supplies. There are a lot of children that wouldn't have that excitement if not for the generous support that we have throughout the Cradles family. There is nothing short of remarkable, and now we get to expand our reach to elevate awareness of clothing insecurity, to find more ways to support children with the essentials they need and, most importantly, deserve. I'm excited to see what the Cradles to Crayons team will do in collaboration with other incredible service partners like Hildebrand and supporters like all of you. We just created a new public service announcement that I'd love to share with you that really hits home who we are and why we do this work. So with the wonders of technology, we'll bring that PSA to you now. Or maybe not the wonders of technology.
One of the very first things we all do at the start of our day is get dressed. But every day, 20 million children across the United States start their day with less than adequate access to appropriate clothing. That's 2 in 5 American children who are going without basics like shirts, pants, jackets, and shoes. This hidden crisis is called clothing insecurity, and it impacts almost every aspect of a child's healthy development. There are no significant federal or state allowances to cover clothing for growing children. As the only national organization with children's clothing insecurity at the core of our mission, Cradles to Crayons is working to bring more awareness to the urgency and size of this issue. In 20 years, we've distributed more than 3 million packages full of clothing, shoes, books, school supplies, diapers, and more. But we need to do more. 1 in 3 American households cannot afford their weekly expenses right now. And 85% of the partners we work with would not be able to provide these critical basics without us. It is estimated that it would take receiving reliable clothing resources at least 4 times a year to start to put an end to children's clothing insecurity. So join us in finding more solutions to provide growing children with the clothing they need, so no child has to stop their day as soon as it starts. Learn more, get involved, and let's end clothing insecurity.
Thank you for that. That is excellent and does a much better job of telling the story in a short period of time than I can. It is incredible that we've been able to help so many children. In a world where there are so many things that can really get you down, one of the things I've found and the people that I've worked with who have come to Cradles have found is that you have a way to make a difference. You personally can make a difference in helping to address the needs of families throughout our communities, families that are in need. And at a time when you feel helpless to be able to do anything, Cradles offers you a real opportunity to make that difference. And we're really just getting started. Visit us at endclothinginsecurity.org, which allows you to get more involved in the bigger issue. Share your stories about clothing insecurity or your experiences with Cradles to Crayons. Learn more about the work that's being done and how to stay involved. I want to thank everyone who is here today and everyone who puts kids first every day. And with that, I'll hand it back to Lynn to wrap us up.
Thanks so much, Bill. And congratulations, Sheila. Congratulations, Hildebrand. I can't wait to see the impact of your expanded resource center and partners. This is an annual award, so please keep an eye out for the open applications for next year. Information will be coming to you in the fall. Thank you also to Yolanda, all of our Chairman's Council members for sponsoring this award and furthering the important work of our service partners. And thank you for joining us tonight, for supporting our mission, for supporting Hildebrand and our goal to end clothing insecurity. So like Bill said, visit endclothinginsecurity.org, share your stories, and stay engaged with us on this mission. Thank you so much and have a great evening.